Good afternoon. Welcome to the Voice of MPE. Today is day 2, and I have the pleasure to take a conversation that we had yesterday around marketing for FinTech and merchant with Miranda McLean, who's my guest for today. Hi, Miranda. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Sandra.
And I'm Sandra Miranda. I'm the founder at Paperwork. Before we even get started, because we can get going for a while, let's introduce yourself. Who are you, Miranda?
So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Ecommpay. I've been with the business for just over 1 year now. Prior to that, I was part of the founding team at Banking Circle, responsible for launching Banking Circle, conceiving the brand, launching the brand. I was there for 10 years. Got a 15-year history in payments, and before that, financial services brands such as Thomson Financial, Reuters, Standard & Poor's. I also sit on the executive board of EWPN, which I've been on since 2015. And I am also on the advisory board of the FinTech marketing community.
Amazing. Sounds like you're the woman for today's job. So, marketing is a really interesting, I suppose, function and word. And you've been in the industry for quite long enough. Can you probably start by talking us through where do you see the ownership of marketing sitting within a business to be efficient before we start going into some of the, sorts of details and metrics, etc.?
Sure. So, I've sat in marketing organizations my entire career. In small businesses, if we start and just focus on startups, the most efficient way is to report straight into the CEO. Having that direct line, that direct reporting straight into the CEO means that you can make decisions very, very quickly. You can conceive your plans very quickly. You can, pivot based on what the CEO's vision is. So for me, I think although, of course, marketing for me sits centrally to any organization, we touch everything: product, sales, customer support, every facet of the organization. It's obviously super important to have strong relationships with everybody that you work with. But in terms of taking direction and knowing which way to take the direction of marketing, having that direct contact and connection with the CEO, I think is extremely important.
Yeah, no, I would probably agree with you. And I think what we're also seeing is the function of a marketer is pretty much expanding, right? It's got a lot more strategic approach to things. So when you are involved from the early stage of a business that is coming to the market, maybe with a valuable proposition, what are really for you some of the funding approach or go-to probably tips that you would share for smaller businesses that are coming into this very crowded space? How do you get started? How do you manage to find your space, even though your product might be very feature-rich and solving a problem?
So I think, right from day one, I think it's really important to understand your ICP. So who is it that you're targeting? What are you targeting them with? What is the proposition? What pain points are you solving for your clients? Being feature and benefits led, will only take you so far. You have to understand the impact that your proposition will have for your end customer. So being really customer centric, really customer focused, and you really only get that by talking to the customers. And if you don't have the exposure to the customers yourself, being really close to the sales team, listening in on sales calls, if you can, accompanying them on sales calls, is super, super important, I think, to, being efficient in terms of understanding what your starting point is. It's a really quick way of understanding. Events like this, MPE, I always like to have my team members present so that they can connect with potential customers and customers. Yeah. They can hear what the customers are looking for, what they're saying they need, what their pain points are, but also go to sessions to understand what the industry trends are. So that's super important. I think a marketing person that doesn't understand the business cannot do their job efficiently.
Yeah. No, I think you're raising some very interesting thought here. And it is a crowded market. And we also know that investment is very tight, right? There's a lot of products or a lot of fintechs coming, maybe sometimes may feel like they're reinventing the wheel, or maybe they're really solving a genuine problem. Yet there's still a demand for being unique and finding, I guess, an element of that authenticity and building the trust, right? That then comes from connecting to the customer, having that genuine, being that close to the actual end user. It's probably difficult, right? I guess to put it in a couple of words, but how do we navigate that? How do we build trust? How do we build community? Because those are core ingredients that bypass any metrics, and it's not palpable neither, right? It's not like you can gauge. But any tips, any way about going around?
I think, in those early stages, when you're an unknown brand, it's very hard to, you have to establish yourself. That's the only way. So first way I'd say is to, use the partnerships route. So actually, partnering with brands that have got that credibility that you don't mind being associated with. So content becomes then super important. So, producing perhaps some, thought leadership or some authoritative white papers in tandem with some strong brands, so you can align your brand and, presumably there'll be a complementary brand to yours, targeting the similar market to start building that presence, that brand awareness, having your experts at trade shows, at events, speaking authoritatively on certain topics, be they fraud, payments, compliance, whatever, but actually just showcasing the expertise that you have. I think it's really important to connect into communities. So things like industry associations. So, wherever your clients are members, be part of that community, have a voice in that community, use those member communities to publish your insights, your thought leadership. People do buy from people still, even in B2B. And of course, having known experts in your business or turning them into being known experts is super important to building that trust and confidence. And then there's, the more tactical winning awards, again, showcasing, but credible awards. There are many awards that, we get approached all the time, like you've won this award that we never entered, right? But then there's a catch and you have to pay for it. But entering awards that are known to be judged by a panel of very respectable judges from the industry, and then winning that award and making sure that you showcase that award. So using, PR and social channels to showcase your own content, your thought leadership, being really present and visible is all part of that journey in terms of building trust and confidence.
You touched on something that it's really intriguing me. It's around the people, right? I have a perception that people are becoming productized and that it is almost a necessary evil, kind of. Can you share your experience? Because you have become such a voice and an influential person within the space that you operate. You're certainly seen as a trusted marketer that actually really push and get the narrative. So do you agree? Do you actually feel that we are very much entering a space where there is that need to break and get into that trust? There's that element where people become also a product, right? Whether you willingly agree or not, but it's potentially becoming core and important to drive that credibility element. Do you think?
Yeah, I think, it's as you're founding a business, you look at some of the founder names, and they certainly use, I'm X, so-and-so brand, and they're using big, established, well-known brands to establish themselves and their businesses. And there's lots of credibility attached to that. So if you've worked for a brand that is successful, well-known, and also if you have accomplishments yourself as part of your own journey, I think that's pretty special. I can point to, I think, my career highlight has to be Banking Circle, because all the other brands that I've worked for, they were big established brands already, so yes, I was working at those brands, which gives you a certain amount of credibility, but to be able to say that you've launched and scaled a brand that is now a well-known brand in a certain category is pretty special. So, I think it's really important when you have those spokespeople and those experts in your business, and many hires are made because people are, have that credibility. It's important to showcase them and to use them in their own right, because people have confidence in the fact that, so-and-so is working in this organization. There must be something good happening there because they're there. They wouldn't have gone there. And we've certainly got at Ecommpay some very credible, strong people in our business that have come from very strong backgrounds. Moish Weingarten, our CRO, he's ex-checkout.
Yes.
We've got Willem Wellinghoff, who's our chairman and also our chief compliance officer. Sorry, he was one of the founding partners at ShieldPay, so he's obviously got very strong experience of launching and scaling a business himself. So that also pinpoints to a market. These people are serious.
Yeah.
They're serious about what they're doing. They're serious about the work they're doing. And they've brought in-house some really great experienced people that know how to deliver.
Yeah, no, totally. It's very much something like a dream team. But let's flip this on the other side. To get to where Banking Circle is today and how you have contributed to that journey must have been panned with failure, frustration, hit and miss. Let's talk about that aspect, because nothing is necessarily right. Even if everything on paper and the card seems ideal, it's the right timing, the right product, the right market, there are always parameters that may, sort of like not necessarily align with your expectation from the business perspective. Can you talk us through some of maybe one failure highlight? We can say that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would say nothing is a real failure. Everything's a learning experience. And, certainly in the early days, we were, pre-launch, we were gearing up for launch, preparing the business. One example that stands out is that, we were very close to the launch date and we'd prepared the website and the messaging and so on. And, after certain conversations we were a very small core team at the time. And we decided, that we had to pull the plug on all the work that had been done and start again and redesign the website and redo the messaging, because we were learning and iterating still. And it was important that when we launched that we got it right.
Yeah.
It was better to do that than to launch with the wrong message and then have to change it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you've just got to say, okay, this may delay us by another week or 2 weeks or whatever it might be, but better to go to market in the, that kind of first impression. You're not going to get that twice, that opportunity. So it's important to get it right. And I remember having to take several deep breaths, having gotten everything ready to go. But these things happen. But it was there was the right decision at the time, and still is the right decision that was made. But yes, there was a lot of work that got into building a website. All that work was then, we pulled the plug and, redid it.
Yeah. And I think I like how you flip, failure being essentially, essentially opportunity for improving and learning from it. And I also think that this is part of a story which is really important to be told, right? Because it is not a one shot you get it right. There's so many different ways that takes you off, but there are cues in terms of helping you preventing to, stumble across the same mistake, etc. So the storytelling aspect, which is also linking with the trusts and what is expecting in terms of authenticity. I think failure becomes an important part of being authentic and truth with that journey. And I'd love to carry on chatting with you, Miranda. I'll just leave this conversation with one last thought. I would love to hear from you in terms of one last tip, advice that you want to leave out there in terms, whether it's helping and giving one bit of advice that maybe has helped you along your career, that you always fall back to, whether it's when you're challenged or whether you split with decision making, or whether it's an advice in terms of avoiding some of the pitfalls. So quite broad, but give us one last really piece of commentary that is close to you that you maybe.
I think, so from a marketing perspective, I'd say focus on your brand and building your brand. Yeah. Because I strongly believe that you can do brand work and activation together. There's a lot of focus, especially from CEOs and heads of sales and so on just converting business. Yeah. But initially, you have to build credibility and build brand, and that's super, super important. Because once you have that reputation, the customers will come. So just focus on that. From a career perspective, I would say use your network. There's loads of people out there that you can tap into, that you can get advice from, you can learn from, use your network. Certainly in my earlier career, I used to hate the networking side of things, used to dread it. And actually it's become one of my strongest assets now, because there's a whole raft of great people out there who have experiences that they can share with you and that we can learn from, doesn't matter where we are in our careers.
That's right. And you are a fantastic advocate within the space. It's an amazing opportunity to have a figure like you being represented here and being so approachable and so generous, who is sharing honest perspective on what it takes to get there. So thank you so much. Real pleasure. So this concludes the Voice of MPE podcast. Thank you for listening.